Me and the pup woke up early. She wanted to come outside. And I got through looking into some maintenance videos. And I found a video from like a little over a year ago. Never really got any attention. The channel's a little bit bigger now, and I figure you guys would like to see this stuff, and you probably haven't seen it. And I noticed I made 2 parts to the video, and I could probably consolidate them. This particular truck, I think, is like a 2014. But this really applies to all F-150s from 2011 up. They have a chronic problem with the coolant reservoir itself leaking, which it becomes an expensive item because the coolant reservoir on the F-150s from 2011 up is part of the airbox. So it's not just as simple as replacing the reservoir. It's an easy job, but you're actually going to be replacing the reservoir and the airbox as one unit together. So the Y pipe typically leaks, the main feed line typically leaks, and then there's an O-ring that has to be replaced in the earlier model F-150s as well. You can tell by the headlights what gen F-150 I have, but really this applies for all of them from 2011 up. So I wanted to share that with you guys real quick. This is a maintenance item that's often forgotten, and or until it's leaking. The symptom is no heat until you get to highway speeds, and that is simply low coolant. And it's a problem that people complain about with multiple manufacturers, not just Ford. Leaking coolant dropping down, a bunch of air getting in the heater core. Don't have any heat until you get it up to highway speeds, high RPM, and then all of a sudden everything's pushing through, pushing air out, getting coolant back into the heater core faster with a mixture of air, and it just leaves the heating insufficient. You may not have an overheat condition ever. There may be just enough there to keep the vehicle from overheating, but you just get no heat. Here's the video. And this is on a 5-liter, but I've seen all of them. The 2.7 and the 3.5 also do the same thing that the 5-liter does. Parts are just different, so you get the idea. You'll get the part numbers in this video for the 2011 to 2000. I don't know when they changed the airbox and Y pipe design, so it may work for you all the way through. You'll just have to do some investigating on that. Here's the video. As I said, sorry.
For you guys, something that people often overlook and often misdiagnose. This 2014, I think it's a 2014 F-150 with a 5-liter engine comes into the shop. Getting information from your service writer is critical, because a lot of times they write stuff down and you don't even know what the heck is going on. It says on here, just leave it alone right now. It's fine the way it is right now. They'll often say stuff like, radiator blows air too loud, only blows air while driving. And I'm like, what? Go reconfirm all this stuff, man, because this doesn't make any sense. Then comes back and says, oh, the customer says the only time he gets heat is while he's driving like 60 miles an hour. And I was like, oh, well, that's a characteristic of probably air in the system, and the heater core has a lot of air in it, and it can't get the air out until it gets up to highway speeds. So sure enough, I put the heat and stuff on. There's no heat. I go out there, look at the reservoir. The reservoir is completely bone dry with just a little bit gurgling in the end of the hose. And these are notorious for the Y pipe leaking that goes to your reservoir. It's got a quick connect on it, and then it goes down to the thermostat housing. So you order the Y pipe and you order a new O-ring, and you put everything back together, fill it up, and you're typically fine. No issues at all. Just make sure you don't have no coolant and stuff in your oil, which typically that's not the case. It's got so much air in the system, it can't get the air out of the heater core until it gets up to highway speeds. So I got there just now, dump a bucket of water in it, fill it back up, come back in the truck, and already it's warm. So be very conscious of this. This is a 5-liter with only heat at highway speeds. Low coolant level. probably a leak somewhere. The Y pipe and the O-ring on the opposite side of the Y pipe. Just go to your parts people, go to your local Ford dealer, and check in with them. Now, I am going to go out here and look at this just to make sure, you know, get all the air out of the system and stuff like that. This is just a quick video to tell you, no heat other than at highway speeds. Check your reservoir, make sure it's full, because typically 9 times out of 10 you got a little leak somewhere and you're just low on coolant and it's got too much air in the system and you got to bleed all that air out, and you can't get the air out of the heater core until you get to highway speeds. The video where I told you the guy had to drive like 60 mile an hour to get any kind of heat, and then I found out the reservoir, the coolant reservoir, was pretty much bone dry and there was so much air in it that you had to be going a certain speed and get that coolant moving so much to push the air out of the heater core in order to get some heat. Well, these are the parts that I replaced to fix this job because I found multiple leaks. So here it is. The reservoir was leaking, so this big tank right here is this whole entire air box section reservoir. It's all one piece. The part number for that, the part number for the hose that connects to it, the part number for the Y pipe that goes, the Y pipe that goes up to the top of the engine, and then here's the O-ring that goes in the radiator, the upper radiator hose side. So basically, pull the air box out of the way, pull the quick connect off of the reservoir, upper radiator hose, clean it real good with some emery cloth or some or the filler or the inlet neck here. Clean it real good with emery cloth or some sandpaper, just real nicely clean everything, all the junk off of it. Pull your throttle body out of the way. You can let it sit right here. Clean this. This is the thermostat housing, so you'll have to clean this as well. And that extra O-ring is what goes in this pipe here, because you can see it's flat. There's a flat edge. There's a flat edge inside there, and that flat edge won't reseal, so you're gonna have to pick that O-ring out and then put the new O-ring in, and then basically put everything back together. Getting this far, so far it's only taken me probably 20 minutes. It's nothing hard to this at all. Okay, so I got the O-ring installed in this hose here. I picked behind, there's a white ring in here. I picked it out. It's flat. It's not, you can see how it's more flat than it is round. That's not going to seal properly, so the O-ring in the upper radiator hose has to be replaced. I got this nice and cleaned off and installed, the neck that goes into the inlet housing, and then I got this nice and clamped in on the thermostat housing here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on pulling this reservoir and stuff off. This hose here comes with this whole assembly. So you have two 13mm bolts up here that have to come out. Remove this hood switch out of the way, get out of your way so you can clear to get to that hose, and this whole assembly will slide out of here, and then you just drop the new one in, and then you just go ahead and hook all your new hoses and stuff back up, and you'll see when I get it all done. It's easy. So I've got everything installed now. I'm going to put the air box and stuff back together, but you can see, make sure these rubber grommets go back in this case, because I often forget to take them out of the old case and switch them over. But down in here there's a couple spots where it just basically sits in, and then you have two bolts that hold everything in. This hose right here comes with this case, and it goes in right here. This hose just basically goes right over to the top of the thermostat housing, and then here's everything that was replaced for this job. Box is one assembly. The top hose, the Y pipe, and a new O-ring. Be very careful when you go to put this side on here. You're gonna have to really put a lot of pressure up on this hose to get it to fit back on that thermostat housing, but it will fit. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and put everything, the rest of it back together, start it up, and then check for leaks. But that's this job. That's how you fix this. The typical coolant leak, 99.9% of the time, it's the connection at that hose going into the reservoir itself, or this Y pipe right here. Sometimes it leaks cold, sometimes it leaks hot, but just replace it all. Just be done with it and replace it all.